Welcome to VPG's Virtual Water Cooler Chat Podcast, a platform that features professionals across a variety of industries and promotes growth mindset principles with a central pillar of championing the achievements of women. Our conversations explore a wide spectrum of backgrounds, experiences, and perspectives, creating a vibrant mosaic that enriches our collective understanding and strengthens our commitment to growth and empowerment. This episode of Virtual Water Cooler Chat features Jesse Landry, a technology operator, market narrator, and builder of signal in noisy systems. Professionally, Jesse operates across 2 lanes, working closely with leadership teams as they design and scale engineering organizations, and publishing daily analysis, tracking how capital, talent, and technology are actually moving across the tech ecosystem. He believes the next generation of leaders won't win by being louder, but by being clearer, pairing disciplined execution with narrative clarity. This conversation explores how storytelling transforms static ideas into living systems that strengthen communities and sharpen decision-making. Let's get started.
Hey, Jesse, how are you doing today? And Happy New Year.
Happy New Year, Ashley. It's good to see your face again.
Yes, I might go to New York at some point, but if I do another event, you will get an invite for sure.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
So let's get right to this. I really am very grateful and impressed with the way you have with words and how you narrate.
Thank you.
So yesterday when I was talking to Kevin Turner, and one of the things is about the power of words in personal branding. And so I'm going to start with that. Can you share with us a bit of your journey into this tech ecosystem? Because that's how you present yourself on LinkedIn. And some of the experience that made you who you are today. That's part 1. Part 2 is, why is narrative important in personal branding?
So the journey into tech, an interesting one. It's not like a linear shot in. I was working with a company called Insperity. We were pretty much a full service outsourced HR company. I started to build up a bit of network within the tech ecosystem through there because pretty much all white collar was the best type of clients for us. And so I just was going through my normal routine one day and picked up the phone and saw this company, Vention, that looked like it would be a great fit for what we were doing. And I picked up the phone and I gave these guys a call. And 2 meetings later, they were like, hey, would you like to come help us do what we're doing here with Vention? And I said, this sounds great. Yeah, sure. I'd love to do it. Let's do it. So I cold called my way in and quickly found out that I didn't know much of anything within the software development world and what goes on in the software development world and the tech ecosystem, because I thought that I did. And from there, Ashley, I just said, you know what? I can cold call with the best of them and I can still grunt work sales with the best of them. But when it comes to what I'm doing here, it looks like this is going to be something that I really need to sink my teeth in and learn. So I've spent the last 15 years of my career, once I started with Vention, out there networking and learning as much as I can. And, affectionately, I like to tell a story about my first client. We called him up, real short story. Hey, Matt, Lisa said I should give you a call. Congratulations on your round raise. I'm with this software development firm now. I've moved on from Insperity, but Lisa thinks we should talk. And he said, yeah, you guys have Python developers? And I said, Matt, I have no idea what that is. And he said,
not the snakes.
And so you're calling up the founder of a company and you don't know what you do. And I said, I have to be honest with you. I started 48 hours ago. I take 4 trains per day to get to New Jersey to go to work. Yeah, give me 5 minutes. I'll go figure it out. So very, very long story short, ultimately they became a client. And a fun story for me is that they dovetailed into us working with ClassPass, which is a really amazing client for Vention. But the reality and the reason why I tell that story so affectionately and love the story is because I realized right then and there, I was going to have to do things a little bit differently. So I've spent a lot of time really understanding the community and what goes on with the community. So I was out at networking events literally morning, noon, and night, and everything in between, just every single day, and trying to get a good feel and education for what goes on in the ecosystem. And I'd recently said to somebody, the community's been so great to me, so now I want to be great to the community, and that's where kind of some of the stuff was born. So yeah, cold called my way in, and it was a lot of fun, and I couldn't be more grateful for not only Vention, but for everything that's grown from it, and it's really neat stuff.
I think cold calling really trains us to be like taking rejections and have a different way of looking at rejections. You want to talk a little bit about how you handle rejections? Because I can imagine you have many. if you do cold call.
The stories I have, it depends on the day, right? Like, listen, I'm not above it. It's not something that's my everyday routine now, but I've literally walked into companies that I've worked with in previous lives. I've turned the lights on at 7 o'clock in the morning, and selling through a recession is tough. And back in 2008, I'd walk in at 7 in the morning and finally have had it at 7 o'clock at night and reshut the lights off and probably made 300 dials. So when you ask me how I handle rejection, I'm pretty bulletproof at this point. Listen, it depends on your mood, right? I come from the waitering side of things and the serving side of things in restaurants. You always have to have your happy face on. But some days you can have more fun with people than others. If you're thinking about cold calling, I could think about some really funny stories I probably can't say on air.
Yeah, please don't share that anything that you cannot share.
Some of the replies that I've given back to some of the things that were said to me have been pretty comical, and we've gotten a chuckle out of it. And, you just have to be battle tested. But the funny thing about rejections and when you're cold calling, to me, it's the grease to the engine of a sales engine, right? Like if you're just starting out somewhere, you have to do it. If you're building a business from scratch, you have to do it. And a lot of the things that I'm doing publicly are just that. It's just putting yourself out there, right? But if you're talking to people on a daily basis and they're giving you objections and rejections, those are your silver bullets. I mean, that's how you're going to learn, right? And that's how you're going to push things forward. And if you don't know, just like the story that I told before, you can't be afraid to say I don't know. You just can't. And follow that up with, I'm just going to go find it out. And if you give me a minute, I'll gladly go get the answer, because what? It helps me, it helps you, right? And potentially it'll help us work together. So you have to be resilient. You have to be strong. You have to know it's going to come. And, like anything, in any relationship in life, there's going to be some level of rejection. So you're just going to have to know how to deal with it. And you have to grit your teeth and you kind of have to shake it off. You shake it off. But for the most part, you go into it with a grain of salt, and nobody ever died from the word no, right? So
I think one of the things is that rejections, I used to take things so personal, and I would be the last person that can actually handle cold call, except that my mentor in life, because of my late professor, is nothing venture, nothing gain. So there's a little bit of irony in that. I have actually become so much better at taking rejections and actually using that as a lesson to find out what can turn the no into a yes. Because no is not mean. It could basically be, this is not for me, and this is not for me at this time. So sometimes I would just ask more probing questions. Sometimes, a no, and sometimes people will be completely silent. They don't even respond. And that is actually a response in itself. Maybe they're too busy. Maybe they just had enough of you. Don't call me back again. That type of thing. So I've actually reshaped those. And that's one of the reasons why I am so intrigued when you said that you started with cold calling. People that are in sales make really good leaders. In many ways, with the metrics, it might be a little bit more difficult. But I think that because the battleground, it seems, it's tough water to navigate. So I was just very intrigued when you first, wrote that article on LinkedIn after you attended my book launch at Temple by Hilton with Tablet Community and Ben Schwartz. So that's one of the things that I really like about the way that you have with words. I really enjoy writing creative fiction, and I didn't know that until about 3 years ago. Because prior to that, I was in the litigation world. I didn't have time. Billable. And then I didn't have enough time. Before we go into some of the other LinkedIn articles, and I have many questions about that, can you share what you do, who you are?
Sure. A couple lanes. So, I'll mention Vention. It's 15 years of my life, hopefully another 15 years, if not 30 more years. Hopefully I'll carry this with me for the rest of my life. Really enjoy the work that I've done. I mean, to be able to bring peace of mind around the engineering side of things for the companies that we work with it's just been a fantastic learning experience, to be honest, because it's allowed me to see things go from nothing to something, if that makes sense. And it's really opened my eyes up and given me an education that I don't even know that any university could really ever match, or any MBA program could ever really match, because I've been able to get really entrenched into what goes on in the inner mechanisms and the working mechanisms of what makes a company, again, go from nothing to something. And I've just been so fortunate to, see founders be successful. I mean, one of the first lunches that I had, Tony McGarvo, I'll never forget it. We met at a round table, a networking event, and we were 2 lunches into it. And, it sat across the table from Tony, and here's this gentleman, he couldn't be much older than me, who just sold off his company for a whole bunch of millions of dollars. And he was like, yeah, dude, I just did this. And I just was enamored by that right away. And it was early in my tenure with Vention. And as I mentioned before, going out to all the networking events and things like that, like this is such a vibrant community, right? And when it buzzes, it really buzzes, right? No matter it's New York or California or Chicago or Austin or Boston, this ecosystem is just amazing. And there's so much to learn. And I've been so fortunate, again, because I've worked primarily with venture-backed companies, to see them go through multiple funding rounds, see what happens when a company goes through a bridge loan and they're struggling and they have no money, and understanding what it is to be a real partner to get through those types of things. You know, to see what it means to bring on strong engineers and unfortunately think they're strong in the beginning and then have to make some tough HR decisions. I've unfortunately seen companies fold. I've seen companies unicorn to IPO. So if you ask me who I am, I mean, when it comes to the ecosystem, I feel like I'm entrenched right in the middle of it all. And that's an exciting place to be. Again, it's an education, Ashley, that I think you'd have to pay $1 million for, to be honest with you. And it's been really amazing. And I think that it's kind of helped to shape who I am, you know, and if I continue to think about Vention and that level of peace of mind that we provide to CTOs and CEOs and ultimately VCs and ultimately institutional, right? It all travels in a various way. Yeah, I feel like it's really part of what my identity is at this point. And it's allowed for me to do what I do, what you see publicly, because I feel like I've lived this with people. And a couple of years ago, and I said to my wife, standing in my backyard, and I love to tell this story too, because I was like, yeah, I'm going to do this other thing while I do this. And she was like, but what do you mean you don't know how to do that? And I was like, but no, hold my beer. I do know how to do it. Let me show you a few things that I've already written a number of years ago. I said, I have ideas and I have thoughts. I have some powerful stories that I can share. You know, if you're talking about Ben Schwartz, you know, Lawrence Grubner, if you know his name or not, but he's tied in with the tavern community also, invited me to speak early, about a year ago this time, at one of his events. And you know how it is when you're invited to speak, you try to go in with a deck, right? And you try to go in with, you know, predisposed. I'll be honest, I did it with this, and now I'm like, you know what, it's easier for me to just talk. And so I went into this event with a story, and I feel like it's just an integral part of who I am. So when I told my wife about this, I said, honey, I said, have a story to tell. And I just said, I've been involved in this for so long on both coasts and everywhere in between. I said, the reason why I think I want to do this, because I think that the voice is a fresh voice, and I think I have a way to convey it differently than what already exists. So I'm not doing anything revolutionary, but it's allowed for me to convey out a different voice, and I'm happy about it because it makes people happy. It makes them feel good. That's all born from my 15 years of, again, helping this organization scale from when I started 250 people to now over 3,000 people. And it's just been such an amazing ride. And it's so hyper cool to be able to do it and do it in a way that I think, again, resonates with people. It's easy to read. It's fun to read. Gives people a little enjoyment, entertainment. Quotes are amazing for me. I get to pull some really cool stuff out of it and share some enormous, you know, accolades and things like that. And it's allowed for me to do some really super cool things. And again, it's led me here with you. So it's a lot of fun. So hopefully that answers the question. You know, I could go backwards in time and talk a little bit about myself too, but I don't want to bore everybody with that and where it all is born from. But it's a neat story and it's a lot of fun. That's a little bit. If there's more you want to go into, I'm happy to go into it, but I'll stop there. Hopefully that answers the question the right way.
There's no right way or wrong way. I think this is like, it takes me to the next part. In your opinion, what makes a story strong?
The people that are involved in it. You know, I think that the people who are involved in it, their voices, you know, the message that they're trying to convey out there. Very fortunate to work with a publicly traded CEO in December. You know, they were having a little bit of a struggle getting the market to realize who they were. They're young on the New York Stock Exchange. And, you know, we took some time to dig into it. And some of the things that are out there are just not, it's so boilerplate.
Probably AI generated.
Maybe not. It depends. I'd rather not say who I lined this up against. Quietly, I would say it. I would definitely love to have some beers and a steak with this human being because I think I would learn a ton over the 2 hours we'd spend together. But no, the reality is I did line up what we were putting together, you know, against some stuff from some pretty notable people. And I feel like we win out for the reasons we needed to win out with what we put out there. And putting that shareholder letter out was very powerful. And it wasn't just me talking to the CEO. You know, it was me talking talking to the CEO and the CFO and the CIO and the investment officer and really getting an understanding on marketing and operations and what they think and taking all of that and just marrying it together to come up with this piece that we felt was really strong and really was going to resonate well with some of the folks that they were looking to put themselves in front of. So what makes a good story, I think, listen, is the backstory of the people that are involved. And I think you have to bring that forward. The interest in where they're trying to move things, right? It's a lot of what you see from me. It's not going to change for anybody else. I want to take in what a company's going through. So let's just use one of the funding announcements as an example. I want to take what they're going through, but there's an ecosystem around that, right? And there's a story around that. And that's, to me, it's all encompassing. All of it works together. There's others that I'm talking to that there's some different reasoning behind why they want to do what they want to do and what they want to put out there. But again, the reality is, it's interesting. I just said this to a neighbor, so I'll just say it here. A lot of people have really great stories. They just don't know how to tell them. They just don't know how to put them together.
Why do you think that is?
It goes back.
I mean, we could speculate.
There's a number of reasons, right? Why are people afraid of public speaking? They lock up. They lock up when they put themselves out publicly. Why are people afraid to cold call? They're afraid of the rejection. Why are people afraid to be vulnerable? They're afraid. They're afraid that they're going to get... We live in a funny world. Most people aren't putting what they're putting out there socially for the dislikes. They're putting it out there for the likes. So maybe people are a little bit afraid to be a little critiqued. Listen, a true story. This happened just but a couple of weeks ago. I got slammed for a piece that I wrote, and it was a word that was taken out of context, and there was an editorial miss on what I was putting together, and I had a lot of back and forth. And the person that pushed back on me is a mentor to me in the sense of what he's accomplished in the writing he's done and things of that nature. I have a Substack that I've just relaunched. I've put my second essay out today. It's a reboot from something that I did. I just didn't like the way it started, and I needed to reboot it. But the reality is what I'm trying to do on the side of narrative architecture and storytelling with my Substack is really modeled after what this person's doing on their Substack. And I really appreciate the work that they're doing. And people are afraid of things that I went through. Like, nobody wants to be told
you're not perfect.
Wrong. Yeah, exactly.
No,
nobody wants to be told that. Think about DeVito in your book, right? He didn't.
Oh my God.
Did he want to be told? Did he want to be told what Kylie finally pulled out of him in the coffee shop? No. Nobody wants to hear it. But I guess if you think about that though, in a way, and you lean on DeVito and you lean on Kylie, right? Like, ultimately they figured it out and had a really good conversation. And I think that relationship, it thrives over, right? But people are afraid, and that's why they're afraid to tell their story. What if my story doesn't resonate? What if it's not good enough? What if my market doesn't want to buy my product? And that's scary. Fast forward, I had a coffee with a gentleman yesterday. He's laser locked in on the fact that people are going to buy what he's selling and what he's putting out there. It's different for people, but for most people, my best friend on the planet hates public speaking, sweats, calls me up, I gotta go. Even hates when his manager's in the car with him on calls. Sweats, can't take it, afraid he's going to fail, afraid he'll say the wrong word. Maybe he won't answer a question the right way. But again, goes back to what I said earlier. If you don't know, you just say, I don't know, and you go figure it out. People are afraid. That's what I think.
I think you are mostly right. I am one of those persons that are actually afraid. You wouldn't think so, but I am. So I've gotten over a lot of the hurdles, but so I've been consistently having like perfect rating on Amazon for my book, The Leadership Catalyst. Don't have a whole lot of people, probably a little bit, like maybe 15 or so. I know the person, and she was so enthusiastic about reviewing my book. And then she finally texted me and said that, over the Christmas, I had a chance to review your book, and I think this is great for the older generation to learn the different dialogue and narrative so that they can actually have a more harmonious and more productive workplace. That sounds all great. Then she said, I gave you a 4. I was like, okay. So immediately my perfectionist tendency go there. I was like, I've been having 5 plus 4 divided by 2. Now it just brought me down to 4.5. And then I just have to actually check yourself, right? It is not ideal. I mean, because I've spent so much time working on this, I know that this is not perfect. I think intellectually, I know this is not perfect. I know that people are going to critique. But I think that when it actually comes down to it, I was doing something else, so it was distracted. And when I saw that text, I was like, I wasn't happy with how I responded, but at the same time, I thought about something that Seth Godin said. I mean, he wrote 23 best-selling books. He was like, once he write it, he put it on there. He was like, I never review my Amazon review. Because for me, for him, once you wrote a book, it's already done. You're not repeating the same process. You just cannot repeat everything identically. So the review for him is based on the different podcasts that I listen to is that the review is for the person who wrote it. It's not really for me. I'm going to write another book. This is good feedback and I'll try to apply if I agree. And so I ended up sending a text back to the person and said, almost have an anxiety attack because I was not perfect, but you just have to do you and I will just have to accept what you said. And that's that. Just, your review is for you and I will take that feedback and apply it wherever it's applicable. But, for a second there, I was like totally thinking about, I am no longer perfect. I think that's one of the things that is really difficult for writers to put their heart and soul into it. And then when someone else can potentially just have that effect on you. But then again, some people will say to me that if you get a 4 there, that means that there's a real person that put their real opinion. 5 is sort of, sometimes people may think that you are paying for the review. What do you think about that? It was a hard blow, but, I got over it.
I like to look for areas for improvement where they're needed, specifically within myself. And trust me, there's a lot of areas for improvement that are needed.
Me too.
And I'm okay to admit it. I'm okay to admit it with my wife. I'm okay to admit it with my kids. I'm okay to admit it at work. I'm okay to admit it with clients. I'm okay to admit it with my dog. I'm okay to admit it, right? I look at it from a work standpoint. I'm going through something right now with a client where we're getting a lot of feedback on a lot of different things. So never mind it even on the writing side of it, right? If I'm looking purely at the venture side of it for right now and the software development side of it, it's hard feedback. I'm going through something hard right now, something I've never had to go through before. It's a first for me. Coming right out of the gates into 2026, and this is what I'm dealing with. I have to be vague for the reasons I have to be vague.
Yes, of course, confidentiality. Mm-hmm.
But the reality is it's tough to hear that feedback specifically about not myself so much, but I'm a part of it. I'm a part of the engagement management side of things. But to hear about it from a counterpart who I know the feedback isn't 100% accurate, but I'm in a weird place because I'm hearing it from my client and I'm hearing it about somebody that I respect, and it's a very tough place to be. Right? So feedback's tough. It depends on who you are, right? And it depends on the level of resiliency that you're able to build up. I think Seth is right on point in the sense of Seth has written 23 bestsellers, right? So Seth has gone through all of this multiple times. As you go through things, you become a little bit more desensitized to them, and you can learn to start to accept things a little bit easier as they come along. But I think feedback is critical. I love when I get messages on LinkedIn, can you make this correction? Hey, you missed that. Hey, we're not ready.
They're reading.
Yeah, 100%. And it's detailed stuff. It's not like, dot that I. This is this and this reason. And listen, sometimes there's misses, right? It is what it is. And I love that feedback. I appreciated what I went through a couple of weeks ago. That was amazing. It really forced me to look at some things, quite frankly, I wasn't thinking about because it's still relatively new, even though we're, a year, 15, 16 months ahead here when I really push forward on kind of doing everything out there publicly. So good feedback's good. Bad feedback's even better. I don't disagree with it. We all need to learn. And how are we going to learn? How am I going to build better products if we don't get solid feedback? Our clients, you know what I mean? How are people not going to build better if they're not getting area for improvement feedback?
And I think the most important part is that I like sort of had the knee-jerk reaction, and then immediately was like, why am I letting other people define who I am?
Sure.
Right? They are entitled to their opinion. I'm entitled to what I have. I respect what they have to say. Thank you for taking the time. So I thank you for the time of writing that review. No need to change because I don't want you to change you for me.
Sure.
You need to stay you. I just have to adjust me. And so I was really glad that from the podcast that I had when I talked to Seth, there were a couple of times, I'm not always great with words. So when I said something, it was like, Seth was like, whoa. I was like, oh God, I'm on public podcast. Seth is going to openly correct me. But oh well, I will live, right? So let's go over a little bit about, there's something that I'm very intriguing in us, and I don't want to miss this during this conversation, that you push out content very consistently and very elaborately, and I love those on the leadership lessons. And there are a couple of ones that I pick. So sometimes you would do the discussion in sort of yourself in the background, but there are times that you would have this AI penguin called DC. So do share your rationale why you alternate between you and DC, the penguin.
So maybe I'll let the cat out of the bag a little bit. We might transition everything over to DC. We don't know yet. Kicking that around. DC's great, right? So I'll start with the breakfast rundowns, right? And the rundowns were something that started as kind of like, location based, if you were from like the Philippines or from Belarus or somewhere I've traveled. The interesting thing about me, and I'll get to DC in a second, is that nothing I build and nothing I do doesn't have a reason, right? There's always a reason for something that I'm doing, right? So if you think about my home really quick, won't bore you everybody with something too long here, but it's a tale of two houses. Right now, the main floor of the basement, those are the next overhauls that need to be done. But if you went upstairs and you walked around the upstairs portion of my house, my bedroom is kind of these weird purpley New Orleans level colors because of my time in New Orleans. My dog is named Nola because of my time in New Orleans. The floors are the color of my hometown boardwalk, and we try to get that to capture that as much as possible. My kid's bathroom is designed because of a place that I went, right? There's a reason for everything. And so when I started the rundowns, I kind of wanted it to be based off of experience that I went through. And as time kind of moved it forward, all of that experience still exists because it's books that I've read, places I've gone, people that I'm connected with, things that they're putting out on the market, et cetera, right? That's where that stuff is born from. And I said, video is neat, so why not put myself in front of it? And then as I'm kind of brainstorming on some things, it kind of just going along. And I was like, my whole house loves penguins. So why wouldn't we just have a penguin running around talking about the tech ecosystem, And then nothing exists like it since Clippy, I guess, right? So
yes.
There's really no rhyme and reason of it other than it was like, hey, this would be really stupid and cool. Like, let's just have a penguin running around. But he has to be dressed in their clothes and he has to have their logo and it has to be a play on words of the company. So there could be very well a transition away from me, although I'm very well dressed in those videos, which is amazing. The penguin is just a hell of a lot of fun and again, makes people feel good. And the writing that he's kind of in front of it makes people feel good. So I wish that I could tell you that there's anything beyond the whole house loves penguins. We probably could keep the house cold enough, would have 100 of them running around, even though they smell pretty bad. But they're hilarious. And that's really the story of the penguin.
They walk funny.
They do. They walk funny.
They walk kind of like a little waddle.
Right? Think about it. What if you had 100 of those little things running around your house, waddling around? It'd be, barking at each other. It really was just a silly, funny thing, and we love them. And hopefully the merch and the swag all starts showing up, and I can have people running around with DC hoodies, and it'll be hilarious. It'll be cool.
That would be hilarious. So my company VPG actually, when it first started, I had everybody assume a animal persona, so that each one of us has an avatar. Mine is an owl. And when Seth asked me, so what animal are you? I said, I'm an owl. I said, because I like Winnie the Pooh and I love owl. Owls sort of represent wisdom and teacher. And Seth was like, but not a real life owl because they are not that nice. And then I talked to one of my other friends who's a brand strategist, Sasha Strauss. And I told him, and he goes like, but they are amazing. Even their face shaped like ears. And it's all to receive the sounds and things like that. So it's so amazing to have different perspectives. So yeah, thank you for sharing that. I really love, you obviously spend so much time in writing those lessons, and many times you give shout out to different people in the industries. So I love that. And now I understand the rationale about the penguin. For this last question to kind of wrap up is that you wrote an incredible piece actually you did something amazing before my book launch at Temple by Hilton. So I invited you to come. And then when you came, I met you. And I was like, oh, such a genuine and guy. So after that, before I even had a chance to write a post, you wrote another post about the book launch. And yesterday you sent me a wonderful text. It's like, even though I don't want to source my opinion of myself based on other people, but you keep that coming, Jesse, because I could use an ego of flatteries every once in a while. Who's your favorite character in my book? And why do you like my book?
It's super easy to read. It's easily digestible. I pour over this stuff, and I'll go back to that in 1 second. It's funny. A buddy just texted me while we were talking, and he's a buddy of mine that's living his dream, and he had posted something up the other day. This guy, Lucas Jones, a spoken word guy. And I mean, what he said in his clip, I emailed my buddy, and I was like, man, this hits. Who is this guy? He's like, I don't know. I just found him. It's pretty good, isn't it? I was like, yeah, Chris, this is some good stuff. And we kind of got into talking a little bit about stuff like that. So, real quick pull it back to push it forward. Don Miguel Ruiz and just so many different other people. Atomic Habits, just psychology.
It's clear.
It keeps going. And then, The Subtle Art of Not Giving an F and all these others that are out there, and Who Moved My Cheese. What you see publicly from me with the books and the quotes and this is 23 years now. Since I'm 23 years old, this is just a lifelong education for me. So when I picked up your book and I started to digest it, I was like, this is quick, this is fast, the lessons resonate, it's not dry. Some of the stuff is pretty dry, it's hard to digest. And I loved it because I'm zipping right through it. But you also know what happens when you move fast through something. You don't retain too much. Actually, a day and a half and I've retained as much as humanly possible about your book. And it's really neat. It's really well written. It's really easily digestible. And many other people need to read the book. It's right here. It's been sitting here and it's going to become a guide and it will get outlined and highlighted just like all the others do before it. Who do I resonate the most with? Hold on one sec. I'd be really remiss if I don't say building something is not easy. And I see a lot of myself in Kylie because of what I've been able to build through Vention, right? So amazing business within a business and so many other things that are going on there. But outside of that, there's this whole other world that exists for me now. And building it's not always the easiest thing to do. It's tough sometimes. And there's some days where I don't want to put things together. And there's some days where I don't want to set up another essay. And there's some days where I don't want to do posts. I want to run away, but it's a 25/8 clock that runs. And I see a lot of what Kylie goes through, stuff I'm personally going through. That's what makes it very easily to keep going because you want to see what's going to continue to happen. I think that there's a little bit of everybody in every character. I like the ambition of Ethan, the soccer player. I like that he dreams big. I'm right now living out the fourth dream of my life. So for me right now, Ethan, if we're having this conversation, he's who jumps out on the page. But if you're to ask me this next week, it could be Kylie. And if you're asking me another, it could be Noelle. It depends on where you catch me, but for where we're at right now and the things that I'm thinking about and the frame of mind that I'm in, Ethan knows he wants to be a pro soccer player. And in chasing that goal, right? Like I had a mentor, Adam Stoll, he said, fly like an eagle. You'll always come down wherever, right? You'll land where you need to land. And that resonates, right? Because the likelihood that somebody's going to go professional in sports is really tough. I have 2 kids that play sports, but if you're focused on that, you're going to land in the right place. And I think Ethan ultimately will land in the right places. And so right now, Ethan's where I'm at. That's the one that's resonating the most with me.
I think Ethan is also not taking the feedback personally enough, and he knows that he's going to go chase after his dream, and that is bravery.
Of course.
So many people are hiding behind that.
But you have to be very careful. They're still kids.
Yes, exactly. In this book, I have most of the generations. I forgot I don't have boomers here because I'm working on a workbook with Brenner on my team. It's going to be very interesting. It's going to be a workbook so that we could have workshop and things like that. And then I'm looking and trying to put out the different generations. And it's like, oh, I forgot to write in the boomers. So maybe I have to do a sequel of this at some point.
Don't forget us Gen Xers. Gotta represent.
No, Gen X is there. Gen X is definitely there. So I got Gen X, Gen Z, I got millennial, but I forgot boomer there.
Part 2.
Yes, part 2. And maybe something else that is different, right? So that is wonderful. So for 2026, give us 2 hacks for being good leaders, in your opinion, because you wrote enough about the leadership. And there are a couple of things that I really like. One of us, the bottleneck is you until you let go. I'm reminded of this every day. My team was like, systems, Ashley, systems. I'm like, I cannot deal with this right now, but they're right. It's just like, I have to get there. So that's one of the things. And success is when the drift begins. Change is what you do when no one's watching.
I tell my kids that all the time.
What do you think? You want to give us a couple of closing remarks of what you think we need in leadership?
You have one.
No pressure, Jesse. No pressure.
No, it's all good. It's pretty easy. Don't think something's easy, because if it was easy, then everybody would be doing it. That's, I think, critical, and it's surface level, but I'm very weird. You can tell I think pretty deeply on things. You can peel the layers of the onion back on that one pretty far to get to what I'm trying to say, but it ain't easy, because if it was, everyone would be doing it. And I think leaders need to really fully understand that and digest that and open themselves up to saying, I might have to go through that then myself to understand why it's not easy. There's a lot to that. Don't think something's easy just because you're here and there's people you're delegating down to. It's not that easy. Things are not that easy. And it can cover a lot of different things. So I know it's pretty broad and I know it's pretty almost vague, but there's a reality to it. You can't think what the people underneath you are doing is easy if you haven't done it yourself. You have to really take that in. I'd welcome leaders, if they're leading and haven't done certain things, to get themselves involved with that day to day to understand like, oh, wow, maybe this isn't that easy. I should be more careful with how I delegate that down or think about it. I think it's very, very important. What else can I think about for leaders? I mean, I'll end it off with, I don't know, maybe it's a shameless plug in a little bit of a way, but don't think that you fully know your story unless you know your story. For some people, that's hard. It's hard to digest. You know, and I deal with a lot of people who have been written pretty large checks to do what they're doing to get out to their markets, but their market isn't seeing it the way that people think that they should be seeing it. If more people could uncover what their true story was and what their true mission was and what their true purpose is with what they're trying to accomplish, I think better business could happen. And I believe that. I really, really do. And the other side of the coin is that I wouldn't be afraid to get out there and learn from your communities. You know, as I said earlier on, and hopefully I can put a stamp on it with this comment, you know, for me, the community, the tech ecosystem, the business community, the business ecosystem, they're all one and the same. Ashley, they've all been so great to me over the course of my career. It's a 30-year career now. I just simply want to be great to the community. I'd welcome others to think like that too, right? We live in a very detached world where we all want to be attached. And I think if you're out there in your communities and your communities are great to you, then you should be great to your communities in return.
Reciprocity.
Yeah. Of course, it works.
Well, thank you, Jesse. This has been such a wonderful conversation, and I hope it is the same for you. As always, I really thank you. And when I go to the next Temple by Hilton's, I hope to see you there with Tavern Community Co-working. Ben Swartz is like awesome, and I was just talking to him about starting like a event in May. He was like, "Well, why don't you get onto the platform? I'll show you how to do this and submit the approval request and things like that." And just love him. And when I was like, "Ben, I am knocking the hall like 60 books over," he was like, "Just send it to me." I was like, "Okay."
Come on, join the tavern fun. We're all doing it. It's great.
We're all doing it. Thank you so much. And I hope that you have a wonderful 2026 and that I'll be sure to follow you and comment and give feedback as needed. Thank you for being and also supporting my book. You have been amazing.
Thank you so much. This has been
very flattering to my ego. But that's not about me.
I am humbly, humbly grateful for the time, Ashley. Thank you so much.